Turcaholics, and welcome back to this bonus episode of Football a la Turca. I know we promised you a transfer episode this week, and that's coming, but lining up schedules has been a little bit of a challenge. It's still the international break. You've got plenty of content with our Europa League previews already for Trabzonspor's Group C, for Basaksehir's Group J, and in 2 days, on the 12th, the Besiktas preview for Group K will be dropping. That will be dropping exclusively on the Black Eagles podcast feed, so go check that out. And of course, Galatasaray's UEFA Champions League Group C preview is dropping on the 15th. And somewhere in between there, we're going to get that transfer episode done. But that's going to be for the next couple of days. Hi, I'm Kaan, Bayazit, your host, and I'm joined today only by Burak, Sezgin, my co-host. Burak, thank you very much for joining me. We're going to talk a little bit of international break stuff, international football, and Turkey in particular.
Amazing stuff. We're just coming off the back of beating Moldova 4-0, Albania beating Iceland 4-2, and Turkish representatives having a great international break. I feel like a dog with two dicks right now.
That's a neat little expression there. Dog with two dicks. Okay, yeah, so, of course, 2 international games for Turkey this international break. Initially, there was a very difficult 1-0 victory over Andorra, 1-0 at home at the Vodafone Park. The goal coming very late there in the 89th minute. Ozan Tufan headed a Yusuf Yazıcı corner kick home and got the 3 points for Turkey. That was a very nervous match. I wasn't particularly nervous, I have to say, but the commentator was very nervous. I think like 25 minutes out, he was already kind of like, just getting nervous and come on, guys, come on, you know. Turkish commentators, hadi çocuklar, inandık çocuklar, blah, blah, you know. So there was definitely some nervosity around the team against Andorra. But like Burak said, today we're coming off a very comfortable 4-0 win against Moldova on the road. And perhaps more importantly, or equally importantly, Iceland lost 4-2 against Albania. So yeah, that gives us a huge advantage. That means Turkey are now top of the group on level points with France. Both have 15 points, but of course Turkey have the better head-to-head due to that 1-0 win in Konya in the beginning of the campaign, if I'm not mistaken.
2-0, I believe.
Was it? I thought it was 1-0.
No, Cengiz scored and Kaan scored as well.
Right, you're good point. So 2-0, which also gives us an advantage because, of course, then if France doesn't beat us by more than 2 goals, that means we would be ahead head-to-head. But given this, how it works now for qualifying for the Euros, the 2 top teams directly go to the Euros. You don't have to play any qualifiers, any barrage games anymore as you used to in the past. So we're in a decent position right now. Of course, lots can still change. But let's talk about these matches first, Burak. Let's just look at the Andorra game first. I'm just going to start off here with the lineup. To give people a little bit of a clue of how Turkey are shaping up these days. So in goal was Mert Günok of Basaksehir. On right back was Zeki Çelik from Lille. In the center of defense was Çağlar Soyuncu and Merih Demiral. On the left back was Umut Meraş from Le Havre in Ligue 2. In midfield, we had Emre Belözoğlu of Fenerbahçe, Hakan Çalhanoğlu of Milan, İrfan Can Kahveci of Basaksehir, and Yusuf Yazıcı of Lille. And then up top, we had Cenk Tosun of Everton and Güven Yalçın of Besiktas. Now, this was a very difficult game. What stood out to you in this match? What do you think was Turkey's main issue here?
I just think there was a real lack of creativity and pace in the final third. You had Emre playing the almost quarterback role just in front of the back four, kind of distributed passes out to the wings and in front of him. But once we got the ball forward, we couldn't seem to be able to break down the Andorran defence, and shaped up very defensively. Can't remember the formation that we're playing, but it almost seems at times like it was like 6-4. And I think with just Hakan Çalhanoğlu, he has no creativity about him at the moment. I don't know what's happened. And the guy has potential, and he has the odd good game for Turkey, like average game, should I say, and he scores the odd goal here and there. But he just failed to create anything in that game. I mean, I can't remember a good free kick or a good corner delivery. And if he did, please correct me, but I was just so disappointed with his performance. And I think the top two of Güven Yalçın and Cenk Tosun, they just didn't seem to work, and that's probably why Güven came off at half time as well. And we failed to create some clear-cut goal-scoring chances. I can't remember like a clear-cut position. We were reduced to like shooting from distance, putting crosses into the box, which never met anyone. And as the game went on, the team got a little bit more frustrated. So there was a couple of yellow cards. I have no worry about our defence. I think the two centre-backs, Melik and Çağlar, are just solid. Especially Çağlar is in a really good run of form at the moment for Leicester City in the Premiership. And I'm not sure how much game time Melik has been getting at Juve with regards to full 90 minutes or sub-appearances. But he seemed like he hadn't missed a beat since the last couple of national games we had as well. But I think the real issue here was just a lack of creativity and the ability to move the ball in that final third, make that killer pass, or make that killer run, etc. So that really let us down. And luckily, Ozan popped up at the end with a good header from a great cross from Yusuf to give us the point. And it shouldn't have been a game that troubled us so much, especially as we're playing at home as well. Completely different performance that we had tonight. But what were your thoughts, Kaan, on the Andorra match? Where do you think Turkey struggled?
Well, I think the inherent lack of a proper winger is obviously a huge issue. We saw Irfan Can playing on the left a lot against Andorra. We saw him doing it again tonight against Moldova. And despite the result against Moldova tonight, I didn't have the feeling that we played particularly well. I didn't really see any massive played out, chances like you pointed out in the Andorra game. No main clear-cut chances except for that header from Cenk, I guess, or was it a header right after he took that shot, which was, we kind of created that space for himself and then he fired off a shot. But then right after that, I think he got like a header or something on goal, which he really should have put away. I don't remember if it was a shot or a header from that. Was it an Irfan Can cross? I'm not 100% sure.
I cannot remember at this time, actually.
But I think the chance creation is an issue, like you pointed out. Hakan Çalhanoğlu, I've never been impressed with his creativity, especially not for Turkey. I'm just not a fan of Hakan Çalhanoğlu. I think he's the type of player that weighs down the team. Also because he does have a little bit of an ego, and he is this set-piece master. Supposedly hasn't scored a free kick since 2017, mind you. But he just claims every dead ball situation. I think that was a problem against Andorra. And I don't think it's a coincidence that once he went off and Yusuf Yazıcı just started taking the corners, we actually scored on a corner kick. Yusuf's corners were a lot more dangerous than Hakan's were. And I'm not saying Yusuf played a particularly good game against Andorra, but for me, Hakan Çalhanoğlu is just one of those guys. I mean, he's still at a young age. I mean, he's like 24, 25, so you'd say, okay, he still has plenty of potential, but I think he's just one of those guys that peaked really early, and I really haven't seen any progression from him. And I think he's just, a false savior, so to speak, or a false messiah. I don't see him as a leader for this team, ever. I don't think he should be one of the first names on the team sheet. I think Yusuf Yazıcı has a far higher ceiling. I think Abdülkadir Ömür has a far higher ceiling. Obviously he's out injured right now, but I think we have better options in that number 10 role if we want to play with a number 10 to begin with. But just lack of creativity. Denis Turic was put on today, a more pure wing type player, I'd say. He's not an exact like a winger. He's more like a right midfielder, but more classic right midfielder, a la David Beckham or something, except for he has a left foot on the right. So, but But yeah, I think just we have a big lack of quality wingers right now. This generation, we have this issue up top where we are still relying way too much on a 34-year-old Burak Yilmaz who's out injured right now, and then Cenk Tosun who's not getting any minutes at Everton, and it's Unal who for the national team just hasn't really broken any pots, so to speak, and he's kind of struggling in Spain. He's getting minutes there, but he's not really prolific. Of course, he's playing for a smaller team, but I think we have such a talented generation at the back. We have a lot of decent central midfielders, even though a 39-year-old Emre Belözoğlu is still playing, but I mean, he's still class. But then on the wings, we just have a lack of quality. Cengiz Ünder constantly being out injured doesn't help. He's our best player, I think, when fit, especially offensively. And then, of course, we're relying still too much on Burak, so we need to find those types of players. And that's why it's baffling to me that for example, Enes Unal isn't getting any minutes in these two games. I mean, he could have easily come on today and had got some minutes, and he could have easily come on against Andorra because we needed a goal and put on a second striker, but Şenol Güneş didn't.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, you had the subs that he brought against Andorra. He brought on Emre Kılınç, Ozan Tufan, and Kenan Karaman. And I thought that either Kılınç or Karaman could have gave way for Enes if he wanted to, throw the kitchen sink at it, so to speak. I mean, we did have a lot of good possession in the game against Andorra. I mean, you're looking at the stats, it's saying we had 75% possession of the ball and 627 completed passes. But as the saying goes, you can have all the possession in the world, but if you don't make it count for anything. It's saying we also had 8 shots on goal, which I cannot remember for the life of me. So there must have been really just poor shots on goal that, someone just stuck out a foot and it went towards the goalkeeper who caught it. So
yeah, or desperation attempts or something. I can't really recall any either. I mean, we didn't create many chances, and I mean, we have 15 out of 18 possible points, which is astounding, which is amazing. And credit to Şenol Güneş for restoring faith in the national team and restoring the players' faith in themselves. We did what we had to do so far in this group, except, of course, away at Iceland, where I think we kind of wet the bed and got tactically outclassed, because we know going into that match what they're going to do. They're going to try and bomb us with crosses. They're going to try and bomb us with corner set pieces, and they're going to try and bomb us with those long throw-ins. And we knew that going into that match. We've played Iceland so often over the past couple of years. You know exactly what they're going to do, and it just felt like we were completely unprepared for that match. But then against, of course, before that we had that amazing win against France, where you're playing the world champions. The team is highly motivated. And on the other end of the spectrum, France were, I think, burned out after a long season. A lot of their players had a very long season. Kylian Mbappe wasn't entirely fit, just came back from an injury, and Kante was injured, so that's a huge miss for France. And we just took them by storm and fully deserved that win against them. But then, 2-3 days later, you go to Iceland and you lose. But apart from that, we've done our jobs in every other match. We've beaten Albania, beaten Moldova now, beaten Andorra. But let's be honest, these are all minnows. These are teams we should be beating. But in the past, we saw very often that we drop points against an Albania away or something. And that's not happening right now. And I think Şenol Güneş deserves credit for that. But tactically, I still see so many problems with this team. For example, today, I don't know if you noticed, but for example, our ball recovery in midfield was a little bit worrying. Up until the 1-0, I really felt like we were prone against Moldova's counters and that we weren't getting the ball away from them on time. And that our midfield just wasn't recovering the ball, and they were constantly running at us when they got those opportunities to counter. And that's something I think we need to improve in midfield.
I mean, yeah, I did notice that, but at no point was I worried about conceding a goal from open play. You mentioned it in our group chat that the only worry really came from their corners, but then again, we've got Merih there, you've got Kaan Ayhan there, you've got Seki Çalık there, all tall lads, all strong in the air, have been known for scoring goals with headers. So I think I wasn't too worried about conceding a goal, apart from the corners, like you said. But I did have faith in the defence that they would be able to get ahead on it and get it out. And like you say, our main oppositions in this group should be Iceland, but we can only beat what's in front of us, and so far that was Andorra and Moldova, and we did it by the skin of our teeth against Andorra, and we did it quite comprehensively tonight against Moldova, so we can have a nice rest now until September.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean November. Sorry, we're in September. The next bunch of games are in November.
I think they're in October, aren't they?
I do have the. They are in October. Yeah.
The next one is on Friday, the 11th of October, against Albania at home.
Yep.
And then the next one is on the 14th against France in France. And at the same time, when we're playing Albania, Iceland will be playing France. We'll be playing host to France. So that's very interesting for us. And of course, when we are playing away at France, Iceland will be playing away at Andorra.
They're at home. They're at home to Andorra.
Are you sure?
That's what Wikipedia says.
Wikipedia. I checked Soccerway. I'm pretty sure it's Andorra, Iceland. But you might be right.
Bet you an ice cream it is not. Yeah. But so you expect Iceland to pick up the win against Andorra.
Yeah, obviously.
And Albania away is tough, as we know. Iceland got beat 4-2 tonight, so beating Albania away was a big result for us. And we should be able to beat them at home with the home support on the 11th of October. And then hopefully still go in to the match away at France as group leaders, which then leads us on to like the crunch match, really, which is 14th of November, which is when we play Iceland at home.
Let's see, the next wave of games. You're right, it's Iceland, Andorra. So it's Iceland playing host to Andorra. But yeah, regardless, I think that's a match we're already counting 3 points for Iceland pretty much.
Yeah.
Despite the fact of how we managed to struggle against them. But, this is a typical one of those games. If you score that first goal early, that can end up being a 4-5-6-0 win. But it's, sometimes it's just that getting that first goal is always the most important thing in those types of matches. And we've just struggled against Andorra. We just kept smashing our face against their defense, and they did pretty well actually, because I think they did a bit better job at neutralizing Jing Tosun than Moldova did today, even though most of Andorra's players are probably semi-professionals. So it's quite they deserve some credit for that. But all in all, I think we are in a very good position now. We have 3 bonus points basically. We don't even have to beat Iceland. I think and also the big advantage we have, I think, something I was kind of fearful for, is that you remember the fallout from that Turkey-France match. There was a lot of political pressure being put on, I don't know, like the politicians in France were going nuts because our fans, the Turkish fans, booed their national anthem and stuff like that, and there was like a political riot almost going on about that, which, I mean, obviously you don't want anyone to boo a national anthem. That's not nice. That's not, sportsmanlike. But the reaction from France was just like, even their prime minister said something about it, that Turkey should be fined or something, or punished somehow. I think it was completely out of whack and just came across as they were kind of being sore losers. But with that in mind, I really think that France would be in a position where, let's say we drop some points here and there against those minnows, so to speak, and they would be comfortably at the top of the table come October. I would not be surprised if they would be like, hey, you know what, Iceland, here, have a couple of points. You know what I mean? So I think the fact that we're now...
No. You turning it into the Eurovision Song Contest where Cyprus gives Greeks 12 points all the time.
Yeah, exactly, man. I mean, and that's the thing. I am very happy with the fact that we are now on level points with France, so they can't pull any shenanigans. They have to go and do their jobs against Iceland because we have that advantage that they play Iceland first. Look, if France goes and phones it in against Iceland and doesn't beat them, or even, lose, then they're in a really precarious position because then they have to beat us, and even then they need to do it by enough goals because otherwise they wouldn't even be certain of qualification for the Euros. So we are putting pressure on France now to beat Iceland, and then of course we have to do our jobs against Albania, and then hope that France does their jobs against Iceland. I think if France beats Iceland, then it's over. I won't say over because we still have to do our jobs and against Iceland and obviously against Andorra and Moldova and against Albania. But then if we don't lose at home against Iceland and we do our jobs in those other matches, we're at the Euros already. So we're in a really good position right now, but obviously, still some games to go. But it's positive what we're seeing. What's your general state of mind when it comes to the job Şenol Güneş has done since coming in as national team coach?
I think definitely positive. I mean, you take the Iceland game out of the equation, where they held us at the airport for so bloody long. Anyway, but he's managed to put together a young team. Like you mentioned, the interim period that Lucescu had, which was a bit of a thankless task, but it did help in bringing out these young players, and the foreigner ban, well, not ban, but the limit, the fact that there isn't one, is really helping these players develop. You look at the players in that team over these 2 games that currently ply their trade abroad. There are people from the midfield, the defence and the attack that are all playing abroad and getting really good experience against top level opposition as well in European competition, which is only going to improve them. But the fact that he's managed to create this positivity around the national team again is fantastic. It's great for the country. It's great for the players because they can feel the support as well. With the women's volleyball team being in the final on Sunday, and then the national team games being like sandwiched either side of that. The men in the basketball championships, there's been this almost positive surge of support from the fans and outpouring love for the national team, which I think is great, and I think it only helps galvanise the footballers and also the sports people as well, whether they be in the basketball, whether they be in the volleyball. You see this outpouring of support for Turkish national teams in big competitions. It's great. Long may it continue, and hopefully players stay healthy and can get fit. I mean, like you said, we played this game without arguably our best player when fit, Cengiz Ünder, and also Abdülkadir Ömür as well, sadly, who's injured. So hope he gets back to health real soon, because with those two in the team, with Yusuf Yazıcı, you mentioned that front 3 playing behind a striker, whether it's Cenk, Burak, Enes, whoever they choose to play, and then 2 midfielders behind. That's a really exciting, I think, prospect for the attack. There's pace in there, there's trickery, there's creativity, there's ability to take shots from outside the box, like we've seen from Cengiz against France and Greece, and Yusuf tonight against Moldova. And then behind, you've got a choice of midfielders from İrfan Can, Mahmut Tekdemir, Emre, Ozan, Okay Kuşlu as well, when he gets back to fitness. So there's a lot of players that are currently injured that are waiting to come back into this national team as well, which makes it exciting for us as fans. For the first time in a long time, you're excited to see the national team play, and there's this expectation as well. I think that's why against Andorra we were getting a little bit nervous and come on, man, we've got good players, we can play good football. Why are we being subjected to this against Andorra? But a sign of a good team is the ability to win when you're not playing well, which is what we did against Andorra, and then tonight against Moldova we just had a bit of a party.
Yeah, you know what? I witnessed this firsthand with Belgium as well. Belgium were basically at every World Cup until 2002, and then they had this long absence for 12 years. They didn't play a tournament, so not a World Cup, and no Euros. But then if you look at that generation they had going into 2014, all these players, Eden Hazard, Kevin De Bruyne, Marwan Fellaini, Thibaut Courtois, we all know all those players. Half that team literally played in the Premier League. And that's something that was a huge difference with the generations before, where most of I mean, not most of them, but like they were kind of scattered around a little bit, but many of them still playing domestically in the Belgian league and stuff like that. And I think the big issue for Belgium between 2002 and 2014 is that they didn't have that much talent in the top 5 leagues. And I think I'm kind of seeing that now. Belgium aren't necessarily playing the best football in the world right now, but if you look at their qualification campaigns, they are absolutely dominating those qualification campaigns. And not necessarily with amazing football, but they're beating those minnows. And they're getting those 3 points every single time. No nonsense. They might have like a slip up once in a while, but like, for example, this campaign, they've won absolutely everything, I believe. I think they have a 100% win record so far. And that's the thing with this Turkey, what we're seeing now too. We see all these players, or the star players of this team, going out and playing in Europe. And you know what? In past generations, we had a lot of German Turks and stuff like that. But if you look at this team, there's quite a lot of Turkey-born players that actually went out into those top 5 leagues. Çağlar Soyuncu, for example, Merih Demiral, for example, Zeki Çelik, for example. Umut Meraş is another example. I'm not saying he's a star to be, but I mean, he went to Ligue 2, which is a good league. And there's plenty of other examples, and this is, I think, we're kind of harvesting the success of that. I really don't think we would be in this position if we would have held on to that foreigner limit in 2015, because then I think that, for example, a guy like Umut Meraş would never have gone to France. I think Çağlar Soyuncu would not have gone to Germany and then afterwards make that jump to the Premier League. I think I think they paid like $2.5 million for him. I'm pretty sure Besiktas, Galataaray, Fenerbahçe would have forked out that cash if the foreigner limit was still a thing at the time. So I think we are really reaping the benefits from that foreign limit being softened or lifted almost. And that's what makes it so puzzling for me when we still see Şenol Güneş constantly push that agenda for re-implementing a foreign limit, because I think this team is the result of not having a very strict foreigner limit. And like I said, those talented players are finally going out and discovering the world. And what they're finding in those top 5 leagues is that being Turkish doesn't get you anything. Which in the past, when you played for Besiktas, Galatasaray, Fenerbahçe, being Turkish got you automatically, and being half decent got you automatically a place on the team. Now they have to work for it and train hard and, go out and get it and grabbing that brass ring. And they're doing it. And that's, I think, why we're not necessarily playing the best football right now, but we're getting the job done. And so much, I think, of that is as well as just Merih Demiral being such a stalwart at the back. You highlighted Çağlar before, but I think the common denominator in all of these games so far has been Merih, and we've kept 5 clean sheets so far. I think we only conceded the goals against Iceland, and I think like I said, the common denominator is Merih Demiral. Just we don't need to play really well because we're probably gonna keep a clean sheet right now because Merih is just organizing that defensive line so well.
It's absolute general, isn't he?
Yeah, he has been. I'm so impressed with him. He's absolutely amazing. And I'm curious what your take is, by the way, on the changes that Şenol Güneş made for the team today against Andorra, because there's quite a couple of those. Just quickly going to run over them. So I gave the starting 11 earlier. So the changes made to the team against Moldova tonight: Ozan Tufan for Emre Belözoğlu, Dorukhan Tokus for Hakan Çalhanoğlu, Kenan Karaman for Güven Yalçın, Deniz Türüç for Yusuf Yazıcı, and Kaan Ayhan for Çağlar. And you said Çağlar had a good game. Why do you think he went for Kaan Ayhan? I'm curious on your take on that.
I think Şenol Güneş just thought, like, Merih Demiral is probably one of the first names on the team sheet, and he is, as Turkey would say, vazgeçilmez oyuncusu, someone you always put down. And I guess Şenol Güneş probably thought, Çağlar, I played him for, I don't know if he played 90 minutes against Andorra, I don't think he did, but it's like, I've played Çağlar against Andorra, so this game I'm going to play Kaan and maybe see how, maybe to create some like healthy form of competition amongst those two. So That's my opinion. I think they thought, Merrick is bunker. He's always going to be there. So let me see how he performs with Charla, because I don't know if those two have played together before, whilst this team has been in this rich rich run of good form.
I think it's always been Kaan so far.
Yeah, but I think, if you look at, Charla's performances since the Premier League has started, he was absolutely deserved his starting place. He's getting rave reviews in the English press from the Leicester fans, from Gary Lineker online, who's a famous British footballer. He hosts the football highlights program, Match of the Day on Saturday.
Gary who?
Gary Lineker. Come on. Shut up, man.
I'm kidding, man.
You know who he is.
Who doesn't know Gary Lineker?
You remember Italia 90. Of course you do. I think...
I just remember him from Match of the Day, watching it on the BBC at 11 o'clock in the evening or something when I was 12 years old.
So my thinking is like, Shedon thought, just let me try out Charlotte with Merrick, and he liked what he saw, and he thought, okay, let me give Merrick and Kaan a go. Again, I think it's their form for their clubs is going to dictate who starts the games in October. Mm-hmm. So it's good to have that. Managers love to have that kind of headache. It's not as if we've only got two centre backs that are good that we can play all the time.
No, we have such a luxury issue at the back, don't we? I mean, with Meri, Kaan, Çağlar, and then Ozan Kabak coming to the pipelines too. And then, we have this little unknown, with what's his name, Merchetin at AS Roma. What if he starts making minutes and doing well? He's a 22-year-old center back too. And you know what? I was curious about this. I'm kind of thinking he went with Kaan today because he wanted a little bit more stable build-up. I'm not saying Çağlar doesn't have good build-up play, but Kaan is really good with the ball at his feet. So I was just thinking maybe that's why he wanted to get some quicker ball rotation in. I'm not sure otherwise, because Çağlar, I thought, was very good against Andorra, very solid, and he's such a specimen, that guy.
He looks like he should be the leading man in a Turkish dizi.
He looks like Christopher Reeves or something, man. He should play Superman in some DC movie.
Well, a lot of people have been saying he looks like the character Lord Farquaad from Shrek, and there's been lots of memes about that because of his extremely strong jawline that could probably cut through diamonds.
I'm not a huge Shrek fan, unfortunately. Well, maybe we should make mention of the goal scorers against Moldova, because we're kind of been just jumping back and forth. But yeah, Cenk Tosun getting on the score sheet twice here. Deniz Turuc getting his first goal for the national team with a very nice free kick. And then finally Yusuf Yazıcı with his first goal for the national team. A brilliant strike from the edge of the area to make it 4-0. Cenk had opened the scoreline in the first half on a Dorukhan assist. Very nice little skill by Cenk, flicking it over the keeper and then putting it home. And then
great skill, especially with someone who's a little bit out of form, and he'd missed a good chance in the first half. You started to think, has he got that cutting edge because he's not been playing regular football? But after that goal, the take, the flick over, the finish. Absolutely, just class.
I thought he was really poor against Andorra, actually. I felt that he was getting physically dominated by one of those butchers or bakers or whatever their profession is. But then here, he struggled in the opening 20 or so minutes, 18 minutes, I think. But then he had this decent pass on the side of the area, and then he took it in, kind of wrestled himself past the defender, had a decent shot on goal. I think that gave him confidence because, couple seconds later, 20, 30 seconds later, he pops up in front of goal. I think it was a header, I'm not sure. Almost scores, goalkeeper denies him, but you could see that he was really sharp and really keen to get to that ball. I just felt like that shot, half a minute earlier, just kind of, lit a fire under him, and he started getting back into the flow. And then obviously in the 37th minute, he puts Turkey ahead with a very nice goal. But we really needed that. I think we needed Cenk to score that first goal, not Deniz, not Dorukhan, not Ozan Tufan. We needed a striker to get on the score sheet, and hopefully he can take this now and maybe get some minutes for Everton. But I think ultimately if his situation doesn't change for Everton, he needs to move on in January because we need Cenk Tosun right now. There's not really anyone in the pipeline that we can say, look, this guy is our striker for the next couple of years. It's really going to have to be Cenk and maybe Enes Unal, but, we've kind of been saying that for a couple of years. I know he's still young, but his situation isn't really changing, and I'm kind of worried by the fact that he isn't getting minutes. He's getting called up by Şenol Güneş, but I'm worried, frankly, that he's not getting any minutes. And Kenan Karaman is kind of being used right now in that second striker role. Güven Yalçın is getting used in that role. I'm not convinced on Kenan Karaman. I think he makes a lot of empty meters. I didn't really see him do anything useful. I mean, he runs a lot, but to what point? To what end? I just don't see it in him right now. Of course, he's a teammate of Kaan at Düsseldorf, but yeah, I don't know. I'm not a real fan of Kenan Karaman thus far. Maybe I don't watch Düsseldorf regularly, so I don't know if he's really good in the Bundesliga, and maybe that's why he's getting these minutes. But I'd much rather see an actual striker, Enes Unal, get some minutes, especially in these types of games, and maybe get some confidence and get to learn to play with this team. And I don't know, Kenan Karaman for me, and then Güven Yalçın, same thing. I'm not convinced on him either. So we need to prep someone for that role, whether it's Güven or Enes. I don't really care, but someone's going to have to get groomed for that striker role, because right now we only have Cenk, who's, how old is Cenk? 27, 28, so...
Around that, yeah.
Yeah.
And, Everton are playing Bournemouth away this weekend in the Premiership, and I don't know whether the manager will look at his performance in the national team, see his 2 goals against Moldova and hand him a start. I think more than likely he's going to start on a bench again and he might be brought on. Yeah. But we know that football's a confidence game, and that's especially true for strikers. If you're going through a bit of a dry run where you've not scored, getting a goal or 2 under your belt is really the platform where you can kickstart yourself and move on. And if only it were the case that he was starting at Everton, you could see something switching him. But Everton have got like a wealth of options up front. They've got about 4 or 5 strikers, and Cenk is the one that wants to play down the middle, but he's fighting with Calvert-Lewin and Moise Kean as well. Yeah. So that's a tall order.
Yeah, and plus then they have what's that Brazilian guy called?
Richarlison.
Yeah, they have Richarlison, yes. And then they have the guy that played for Arsenal for 20,000 years and always got injured. So, and then they also have what's that Brazilian called that they got from Shakhtar, Bernard. So they've got so much options, really, don't they? And getting minutes for him is going to look so weird. He had options during the summer and he didn't move. I believe Frankfurt were interested in him. Besiktas were interested in bringing him back on loan. I get that he didn't want to come back to Turkey yet. For him, I think going back to Turkey now, that's like, okay, you know what? I failed abroad. And, he doesn't necessarily have to succeed in the Premier League, but he could go to like La Liga or Serie A or Bundesliga. I'm not saying that those leagues are, perfect for him, but I think Cenk very much still wants to prove himself and doesn't want to go back to Turkey before he's like 29, 30 years old. So I get that, and I kind of respect that.
I think definitely, and especially if we do qualify for Euro 2020, that might make him forced to move more in January so he can be playing regular football before the tournament.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, hopefully in January he will force a move or get a move or maybe do the Bundesliga or something. I don't know, but he needs a move. He needs to play because right now he is our number 1 striker, whether you're a fan or not. Obviously, I like Cenk a lot, but even when he played at Besiktas, I love Cenk. I think he's a great second striker to have, behind, for example, a Burak Yilmaz, a Mario Gomez, or whoever. I think he's a fantastic player in that role. But as your starting striker, even when he was at Besiktas and he scored like 20 goals in the season, I always kind of had the feeling like, not really good enough, maybe. I love Cenk, and I think he's really good, actually. It's weird, but that season he scored 20 goals. Abubakar played a pretty big role in the team, too, and often they play together, and I think when he can play together with another striker, he's actually really good, too. And we saw that briefly, I think, against Albania, that Burak and Cenk functioned really well together. So I think that could work. But as the lone striker, I think Cenk just lacks a little bit of physicality. He's a strong guy. He's a stocky bloke, built well. But he's only 1 meter 83, and against physically dominating defenders, he struggles a lot. So yeah, Cenk right now, he's our number one, but we have a little bit of a deficiency up front, which we hope that something is going to come out of the pipeline somewhere. Maybe Batuan Karadeniz can try again.
I think there's more chance of pigs flying and singing opera.
What could have been that guy would have been perfect for Turkey. And
what a waste. I've actually just seen a tweet now by our good friend and co-host Özer Dincer, who has said that apparently Cengiz Ünder is out for 5 weeks, which would rule him out of the October games. So I think, that boy needs to look after himself a little bit more.
I think he's just really injury prone. I mean, he was injured the last wave of international games too. I mean, he missed a game against Iceland. He played against France and then got injured, of course, and then missed the game against Iceland. And I think we've had a lot of injury issues. I mean, we're missing Burak. I think in those games against France and Iceland, we were missing Cenk. Obviously against Iceland, we're missing Cengiz, and Cengiz is injured a lot. So we're kind of struggling with those injuries up top too. We don't have that many options, and then we have those injuries. I mean, it's a good thing we didn't drop any points.
Indeed. And of course, the best left back in the world, Hasan Ali Kaldırım, is injured as well. So get well soon, national team players. So we hope to see you back for the October games.
Yeah. What's your opinion on Umut Meriç, by the way? His performance against Andorra and then tonight against Moldova?
I don't think he was ever really tested, to be fair. And he did a job. He did what was asked of him. I don't think he was ever really under any serious pressure of attacks, being caught out on overlaps. He's got 2 extremely good centre-backs next to him who can marshal him and tell him where to go, where to be positionally, etc. So I think if he was playing against tougher opposition, it would have been a bigger test for him, and we maybe would have had more to talk about. But against Moldova and Andorra, I don't think he was ever really put under any pressure to test his defensive abilities. So I think he did a standard 6, 7 out of 10 job.
Yeah, I'd be curious to see him against... get him tested a little bit, because offensively I kind of feel like he doesn't really contribute much. But then again, I mean, Irfan Can was playing on the left a lot today, and then every time Umut would overlap, he would absolutely ignore him. So I don't know what's up with that. But yeah, Irfan Can on the left or on the right. I just don't like him on the wing. I think he's a good player in the center of the park, but he should not be playing on the wings, and that just illustrates the issue we have. And then you know what? Honestly, I'm kind of hoping that Gökhan Töre can have a solid season for Malatyaspor without injuries, and then hopefully he can get back into the national team, because he's one of the few options we have. And then, of course, Emre Mor, but he hasn't looked too convincing at Galataaray so far, so I get that he wasn't called up yet. But hopefully those two can, revitalize their careers a little bit, because we desperately need those wingers.
If I was a betting man, I'd put my money on Gökhan Töre ahead of Emre Mor. But going back to the Moldova game, and what do you think was the difference tonight from the game against Andorra?
Just getting that goal. I think if you get that goal against Andorra in the first half, you're looking at a 4-0 too. I think that was just a difference. Plus, maybe that we were keeping the park a little wider because we had Deniz on the team, and against Andorra, I think we were playing far too much through the center. We of course were playing with Yusuf and Hakan, and they were the center was completely crowded, and all Andorra did was just park the bus, and then they just had to have enough bodies in the box, and we could try and cross it, but there wouldn't be. They just overwhelm us in the air, and just physically, they were pretty good physically. And they didn't have to run that much because we were always on their half anyway, so they were kind of boxed in, so they weren't wasting that much energy by running after the ball constantly, because they weren't pressing high or anything like that. So I think the main issue is just that we kept the park wider today against Andorra. And I think we had a little bit more dynamicness in midfield, maybe. I think Dorkan had a decent game. Ozan had a good game. Not necessarily that they contributed that much in attack, although Dorkan had a couple of nice passes. But I don't know. I think just it that we didn't focus too much through the center, and we used the wings a little bit more, even though, Irfan Can on the wing didn't really work out all that well. But I think Dennis, he did his job. He didn't particularly stand out with his wing play. Didn't really have a lot of dangerous crosses or anything. But just keeping the park wide, I think, helped a lot. And we stretched them out a little bit, which then allowed us to find a couple of openings in behind the defense where Cenk could try and capitalize. And luckily, in the 37th minute, he did and got us 1-0 up before halftime. And then, of course, things snowballed from there.
I think Dennis put in some good crosses and corners. I could count a couple where there's one where he narrowly missed Cenk's head going into the goal.
Yeah, and his corners were definitely a lot better than Hakan's were last week, for sure.
Yeah, and his free kick goal was just sublime. I mean, I was on the edge of my seat as he was taking it, and he stepped up. And then the way he positioned it, I think it actually went in off the post as well, to get it up and down that quickly. So I'm excited to see those for Fenerbahce in the season going forward. And, we have to talk about Yusuf Yazıcı's goal, which was just, that was absolutely sublime. Gets the ball, picks up, goes past one or two players outside of the box, and he thinks, do you know what? Today's my day. And he launches an absolutely sublime right foot curler, just over the keeper's despairing dive, to put a lovely cherry on the top of a delicious cake. So,
yeah, for sure, it's good for our goal differential too, and this is a typical 4-0 type of goal. It's already 3-0, so hey, have a go. Why not? Dennis, I agree, his free kick goal was really good. And you could kind of see it on his face when he was lining up that he was going to shoot. He wasn't going to try and put it in the cross. You just saw that he right before he take a shot, you just look at him and I think he kind of spotted the goalkeeper, maybe mispositioned a little bit, and that he could surprise him in the near corner. He did with a very good strike. And
And now all he has to do is make a YouTube video of that free kick goal from different angles, and he'll get a move to AC Milan.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, there we go.
Okay, well, I think we spoke enough about Turkey. I don't know if you have anything else to add about the Turkish national team's campaign so far.
No, just that if we do qualify, then UEFA are releasing tickets for group stage matches in December. So start saving up now, people, because we are going to those Euros next summer in various different cities.
Okay, well, there's just one more thing I wanted to talk about, and that's just two guys that really stood out this international break that are active in Turkey, not Turkish players, but those two, of course, Ryan Babel of Galataaray and Vedat Muric of Fenerbahce both had a very good international break. Ryan Babel getting an assist against Germany, the Netherlands emphatically winning away in Hamburg 2-4. He gets the assist on the 1-0, and then he forces Ta to score an own goal on the second goal for the Netherlands, and ultimately, of course, Holland ended up winning that 2-4. And then he got a brace against Estonia the other day in a very easy 0-4 away win for Holland. So Holland looking really good in their group right now. They have 9 points out of 4 matches, but they have a match less played than both Northern Ireland and Germany. So if they win, then they will be on 12 points level with those two. So Holland looking good, heading into their European qualifier. Well, heading into hopefully what for them will be a European Championship. And then tell us a little bit more about Vedat Muric's success for Kosovo, Burak.
Well, the Dardanian continues to impress with his play. Kosovo were playing the Czech Republic on Saturday. I believe they were playing at home. They went down 1-0, but then Vedat scored to make it 1-1, put himself about the pitch as he does. And then tonight, Kosovo playing against England. In England, Kosovo went ahead after 30 seconds, a horrendous defensive error from Michael Keane, I believe, plays for Everton. Vedat picked up the ball and passed it into his teammate, who slotted it in under Jordan Pickford. And then England proceeded to score 5 goals before the first half ended. Second half starts and Vedat picks the ball up on the right wing, puts in a lovely ball into the middle of the box. A Kosovo player picks it up and curls it past Jordan Pickford. And then a few minutes later, he gets fouled in the box by Harry Maguire. He gets tripped, and then he demands the penalty from his teammate, and then he slots that in as well. So I think I had both games on, and the Turkey game finished a little bit earlier than the England game. So I put the volume up on the England game for the last 5-6 minutes, and the commentators were referring to him as strong and skillful. So by all means, he's impressed for the national team as well. 2 assists, 2 goals, and I actually caught some of the Netherlands-Germany game on the weekend as well. And Babel is having a revelation, late in his career. İkinci bahar yaşıyor, as Turks would say. And I think you tweeted about it as well earlier online to say, imagine if he had been this prolific when he was in his younger years, where he went a little bit off the rails after the move to Liverpool and kind of got lost in the wilderness before resurrecting his career at Kasımpaşa, and then obviously moved on to Besiktas and now Galataaray. So it's good to see these players playing in the Turkish league, also doing well on the national stage, and not against like minnows either. I mean, you got the Vedat putting a great performance against England. The Czech Republic aren't the team they used to be, but he still scored. And then you've got Babel putting in a great performance against Germany with the goal and the assist and the shot that actually turned into an own goal, which was his creation, and then bagging a brace against Estonia. So it's only good publicity for the Turkish league, and it could be the driving factor behind certain players' decisions to want to come to the Turkish league as well, especially if the team continues to do well leading up to the Euros, and the Turkish teams do well in Europe. Turkish players based in Turkey, playing for other international teams, doing well for their national teams, it can only be a positive thing for Turkish football. And that's why the foreign limit rule being discussed is so ridiculous, and especially by Şenol Güneş, who is benefiting directly from it being lifted. So I think there must be like an ulterior motive or agenda there, and he's being almost forced to push it on. But yeah, it's been a great international break. No injuries, fingers crossed, as well. So everyone's returning healthy back to their national team, back to their club teams, and we can kick off with the Super League again this coming weekend.
Yeah, and even more so, I think, to that point what you're making, I think it maybe makes the league a little bit more attractive for people coming in. But I think it also makes it more attractive for them in another sense, that we have these players going out to the top 5 leagues right now, being successful. I think that's also going to make it more interesting for younger foreigners, for example. Take, for example, Bernard Mensah, who signed with Kayserispor. He's just 24 years old. I think he's seeing these younger Turks going out into the wilderness, so to speak, and being successful. And I think the Turkish league is slowly but surely becoming more and more of a talent pool for those top 5 leagues where they're going to go out and scout. I think 5 years ago, they were barely doing that. The Turkish league wasn't exactly a league where, for example, an AS Roma would bother with going to look for cheap talent, like they would in Belgium or in Holland. But I think the thing with Belgium and Holland is that the market values there has gone up so much. If you want a semi-talented player from Ajax, you're paying 20+ million. And in Turkey, you can pick up guys for 2.5 million. If you're, of course, buying them from Gençlerbirliği and not from Galatasaray, Fenerbahçe, or Besiktas or Trabzonspor. But there's, look at Cengiz Ünder. he got picked up for some spare change from Altinorde. Obviously, Basaksehir picked him up, but you know what I mean. And then there's other players like that, going forward. And look at Berke Özer, for example, being good at Westerlo right now. I think that's also making a good impression. And slowly but surely, maybe that negative stigma that the Turkish league, that Turkish football have of kind of being the European sandbox, so to speak, maybe that's a way to get rid of it. And I think that's the current foreigner rule. Can be modified a little bit. I think there's definitely things that should and could be modified. I think incentives to play Turkish players are good, but you shouldn't make it a must, so to speak, because then you're just forcing Ismail Koybashes and Cenk Gönens on the teams, and that's not something we want. Anyway, we've done an episode on that anyway in the past, so our opinions obviously hasn't changed, but it is puzzling for us that Şenol Güneş continues to talk about it every other couple of weeks, and I completely agree with you, Burak. I think there's an ulterior motive there. I think he's being instructed to do so by higher powers, and I think it's clear because Mircea Lucescu was doing the exact same thing, and now that he's not the Turkey coach anymore, he doesn't seem too fussed about the foreign limit. Obviously, he doesn't have the incentive to do so anymore, but whatever. Anyway, I think that'll do it for our international break coverage. We were aiming for a 30-minute episode. I think we went well over that. But like we said, we're going to come back with a transfer episode later this week too. Burak, thank you very much for your time. Anything left to add?
Enjoy the evening, Turkish football fans, or enjoy the morning when you will be listening to this. We are top of the group, and we are marching into those Euros next summer.
Yeah, and guys, this is going to be a lazy edit. I'm just going to stick an intro, stick an outro on it. There's not really anything to edit anyway, so going to be a lazy edit, so you're not going to have these fancy effects and stuff like that, but this was just a quickie. I would like to remind everyone, please go check out our UEFA Europa League Group C preview, which of course features Trabzonspor, and they're up against FC Basel, Krasnodar, and Getafe. We had some great guests on the show for those teams. Oliver Zessiger, Swiss football scout, who told us a little bit more about Basel. Then we had Will Baumgartner on from Russian Football News to tell us a little bit more about Krasnodar. And then, of course, Alexandra Johnson, sorry, I always say Johnson. Alexandra Johnson from La Liga TV. She came on and told us a little bit more about Getafe. I really learned a lot about all those teams on the day, so I highly recommend going out of your way and listening to the Group C review. And then the Group J review with Basaksehir, AS Roma, Borussia Mönchengladbach, and Wolfsberger AC from Austria. That was a very interesting episode too, and especially I think John Solano's passion for AS Roma really came across well, and he just kept telling us so much fun stuff about AS Roma and Cengiz Ünder's role in the team, how he sees maybe the future for Mert Çetin. So lots of extra incentives for Turkish football fans to go and listen to that. Then I spoke to Roland Murphy about Borussia Mönchengladbach. So definitely an interesting team. I think Basaksehir are going to struggle a lot against them. And then finally spoke to Martin Schauhuber for Wolfsberger AC. He's the editor of Der Standard in Austria. So all these interviews are worth a listen. Go check them out. We have on the 12th Europa League group preview for Group K dropping for Besiktas. This one is exclusively dropping on the Black Eagles podcast feed, but we will be tweeting that out on the Football Turca feed too, so you can find it easily. And then on the 15th, finally, I'm doing the final recording on Friday for that one. I still have one interview left to be done. That's why Galataaray are the last ones to drop. But on the 15th, the UEFA Champions League Group A preview is dropping with Jonathan Johnson covering Paris Saint-Germain, Ben Hayward covering Real Madrid, Guillaume Mabe covering Club Brugge, and our very own Özer Dinger covering Galataaray. So a lot to look forward to in the upcoming days, a lot to listen to. So, I think these European previews are definitely worth a listen. Yeah, that's all I can say. Please help us out by retweeting, sharing with your friends and family, so that the podcast can continue to grow and continue to get more listenership. That way we can bring you more of these types of interviews with internationally renowned journalists to give their insights on Turkish players abroad, teams. There's endless possibilities of what we can do if we continue to grow.
Exactly, and we also now have a Facebook page, so go and post on there. We love to hear your feedback, so what you like, what you don't like, get involved in the conversation. And once again, thank you for listening and inviting us into your ears.
Facebook page will be in the show notes. Check it out, and see you all later this week. Thanks for listening. Bye-bye.
Thanks, guys. Bye-bye.